morning and welcome to Government House. My name is Hugh and I have the honour to be the official secretary to Her Excellency the Governor, and I'll be the Master of Ceremonies today. If you are able, can you please stand for the arrival of Her Excellency the Governor and remain standing for the playing of the Vice-Regal Salute. Please be seated.
I acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional lands of the Ghana people, their traditional lands in the past, today and into the future. And I acknowledge and pay my respects to the elders and of course to any Aboriginal people here with us today. I welcome everyone to Government House. Today is a very special day and a day to remember. Rod and I want all South Australians to feel welcome at Government House. We're not absolutely sure that it would be possible for all 1.7 million to visit during my 5-year term, but the invitation is a very genuine one, and you're all very welcome today. We want you to feel comfortable, notwithstanding the imposing nature of the ballroom. We'd like those whose service we're honouring at the back of the room to feel as comfortable today as you have every day giving the service that we are recognising and honouring today. And we certainly want those who are here to support you, in many cases the people closest to you, the people you love most, family members and friends, without whom I'm sure many of you would say your service would not have been possible. So thank you all. A very brief word about the Order of Australia. It is our national honours scheme. It is intended to recognise outstanding service and exceptional achievement. They're quite big words, outstanding and exceptional, but they all add up to something quite extraordinary. And you at the front will be familiar with, in often intimate detail, the service that is being acknowledged today. But in the course of the ceremony, you'll come to understand more about the service of others. And it's really the sum total of all of that, I suppose, that I think is particularly special and reflects very well indeed on South Australians. Typically also, recipients are very unassuming about their achievements, and some in the past, not so much these ceremonies last week and this week, but certainly the ones that I conducted in November last year. 2 recipients told me afterwards that they couldn't believe the email they'd received from the Honours Secretariat was actually real. They thought it was a phishing email or something that wasn't true. They checked with their spouses, they agreed it couldn't be true. The email was deleted. So I'm very glad that all of you have recognised the validity, the veracity of the email and that you're here today. One final word, you're only here actually because another Australian recognised in you something very special about your service. And I encourage both the recipients but also everyone at the front. At the end of today, you will have a very clear idea of what outstanding service and exceptional achievement mean. And I'm very keen to encourage you, when you see it in the community, to nominate. It's not a difficult thing to do. It takes a little while. The Governor-General told me personally he's keen to speed up that process. So please seek to create opportunities for others to enjoy what you're going to enjoy today. I know the official party's already been acknowledged, but I simply want to say how grateful I am as Governor that these investiture ceremonies are supported by our elected leaders and also by our service chiefs. Over to you, Official Secretary.
Your Excellency, the following appointment to Member of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been made. Ms. Catherine Ann Presser is recognised for significant service to business in the field of accountancy and to the community. Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary of Beach Energy Limited from 1997 to 2016, Ms. Presser was one of a handful of female CFOs of a major Australian company. She is a Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Company Secretaries, the Certified Practicing Accounting Association, the Governance Institute of Australia, and the Australian Institute of Company Directors. She serves on a number of boards, including Amero International, KP Advisory, Police Credit Union, and the South Australian Government Financing Authority. Ms. Presser is currently the Independent Chair of the Department of Treasury and Finance Risk and Performance Committee. From 2011 to 13, she was a Non-Executive Director of the Australian Institute of Management. Ms. Presser sits on the University of Adelaide Council and the Council of Governors for the Walford Anglican School for Girls. And since 1987, Ms. Presser has been an officer in the Australian Army Reserves. Ms. Catherine Ann Presser. Your Excellency, the Medal in the Order of Australia has been awarded to the following recipients. Mr. Derrick Casey is recognised for service to tertiary education. Mr. Casey has been a respected player in the development of South Australia's premier position in the hospitality and food industry through vocational training. As a member of the team that, under the stewardship of Graham Latham, planned and developed the renowned TAFE Regency Hotel School, now the Regency International Centre, he helped the state's vision for a world-class hospitality, cooking and tourism training institution become a reality. He also assisted in brokering the relationship between Regency and the prestigious Cordon Bleu School, resulting in the establishment of Australian campuses where he served in various management positions, including CEO. Originally a chef with Qantas, Mr. Casey has consistently demonstrated a commitment to vocational training by contributing to the Australian National Training Authority, the Tourism Training Australia, and by captaining Australian competitors at international competitions, including the Culinary Olympics. Mr. Derrick Casey. Mrs. Valerie Fuster is recognised for service to community health. As a child and family health nurse, Mrs. Fuster looked after Riverland babies for almost 3 decades. She has also been a volunteer, counsellor and community educator with the Australian Breastfeeding Association. After retiring, she stayed active in community health through volunteer work with the Riverland Community Suicide Prevention Network. Since 2012, she has chaired the Community Response to Eliminating Suicide Steering Committee and has facilitated suicide prevention workshops. She is a life member of the Friends of the Women's and Children's Hospital Adelaide and volunteers with the Berry Friends Auxiliary. On top of her volunteer work in health, Mrs. Fuster is active in a number of community groups, including Zonta, Meals on Wheels, and the St Vincent de Paul Society. Mrs. Valerie Fuster. Miss Eleni Adriana Gluptsis is recognised for service to Australian rules football, particularly as an umpire. Miss Gluptsis has been a trailblazer for women in football, becoming the first woman to umpire a men's AFL match. Growing up near Prospect Oval, she started her umpiring career in 2006 in the North East Metro Junior Football Association. She was the first woman to officiate in the SANFL and then the first to control a VFL game before making her AFL debut in 2016, officiating a pre-season game between Carlton and Essendon. The following year, aged 25, she made her regular season debut. Ms. Gluftzis also works as a physical education teacher in Melbourne and was named Young South Australian of the Year in 2019. Her tenacity and commitment to overcoming barriers makes her a role model for young women, and as a Greek Australian, she also inspires culturally diverse communities to be included in Australian institutions. Ms. Eleni Adriana Gluftzis. Mr. Ante Killich is recognised for service to the Croatian community of South Australia. Mr. Killich has helped make South Australia home for thousands of Croatian Australians. A proud community man, he's been a driving force for the Croatian Sports Centre for 21 years, serving as both founding president and a member of the advisory committee. Mr. Killich selflessly donated materials and labour to help build the Croatian Sports Centre and the Croatian Club. Since the 1970s, he has volunteered in numerous capacities at the Adelaide Croatia Riders Soccer Club, in a sport that helps keep him close to his heritage. He has contributed as chairman, president, and treasurer. Combined with nearly 50 successful years running Killich Engineering, Mr. Killich is a shining example of the contribution of post-war immigrants to our state's cultural diversity and broader society. Mr. Ante Killich. Mr. Nicholas Lee is recognised for service to the community through the not-for-profit sector. Since losing his wife Jodie to bowel cancer, Mr. Lee has courageously devoted his life to protecting Australians against the disease. He founded the Jodie Lee Foundation, which has raised $12 million for preventative action and launched Australia's largest corporate bowel screening program. Living through challenging experiences taught Mr. Lee the importance of strong mental health, leading him to co-create Healthy Minds, the world's first psychological skills program for schools and companies. He envisages a future of resilient South Australians where mental health issues are a problem of the past. Mr. Lee was named the Ernst & Young Social Entrepreneur of the Year in 2013 and was a finalist for South Australian of the Year in 2015. Mr. Nicholas Lee. Ms. Angela Pangalo is recognised for service to people with neurodevelopmental disorders. When Ms. Pangalo's son Connor was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, she wanted to give him a bright future. There were no programs or support available for him at the time, so she created her own. In 2007, Ms. Pangalo started the Gold Foundation, a centre dedicated to young people on the autism spectrum, with an Australian-first social skills program which started with 8 boys. Today, the foundation empowers hundreds of young people, helping them to reach their full potential. Connor, now a young adult, embodies the spirit of his mother's foundation, achieving a 99.8 score and studying for a double degree in law and international relations. Ms. Pangalo was named a Citizen of the Year in the 2014 Australia Day Awards for her work at the Gold Foundation. Ms. Angela Pangalo. Mrs. Maria Parema is recognised for service to the Latvian community of South Australia. Mrs. Parema helps the many Latvian immigrants in South Australia stay connected to their heritage and homeland through the arts. She has championed various Latvian community organisations from 1965 through to today. A member of the Adelaide Latvian Society Choir, organiser and conductor at Balsis, and music reviewer at Latvietis, she was involved in the reopening of the Latvian Museum and an oral history project with the State Library of South Australia. During her 37 years of teaching, she volunteered at the Adelaide Latvian School for 12 years, authored a book called The Flinders Street Latvians, and presented the Latvian Voice program on ethnic radio. Mrs. Parema is to be commended for creating a welcoming community for Latvians far from home. Mrs. Maria Parema. Mr. Adrian Robert Pobke is recognised for service to tennis and to the community. Sport brings communities together, and for nearly 60 years, Mr. Pobke has strengthened the Adelaide Hills community through tennis and bowls. He has served in many positions in the Hills Tennis Association, the Aldergate Tennis Club, Summertown Table Tennis Club, and the Hills Table Tennis Association, including as President and Treasurer. Mr. Pobke has also been a member of the Uradla Bowling Club since 2010 and part of the club's management committee since 2011. He has also been an active member of the Hills Bowling Association. Off the court and the green, Mr. Pobke has contributed 35 years to the Uradla Institute Committee as Treasurer and Booking Officer, also holding various member and chairperson committee roles for the Stirling District Council. Mr. Pobke exemplifies the community spirit of the Adelaide Hills and is a well-known face in the area. Mr. Adrian Robert Pobke. Dr. Susan Jennifer Pollard is recognised for service to the Catholic Church of Australia. Dr. Pollard has dedicated her life to empowering others in her work as a clinical psychologist and as a religious sister. Since 1968, she has dedicated her life to the Sisters of St. Joseph of the Sacred Heart, the order co-founded by Mary MacKillop in the 1860s. The founding member and chairperson at the Josephite South Australia Reconciliation Circle, Dr. Pollard went on to pen the book Celibacy and Soul, Exploring the Depths of Chastity. Her words, works and wisdom as a Jungian analyst, religious sister and a Christian scholar have become a catalyst for the spiritual development of many. Before starting her private practice, Dr. Pollard was a principal, deputy principal and primary school teacher at St. Joseph's School, St. David's Parish School, Caritas College and St. Margaret Mary's School. Dr. Susan Jennifer Pollard. The late Mr. David Hugh Stacy is recognised for service to veterans and to the community of Strathalbyn. Mrs. Janet Stacy, wife of the late Mr. Stacy, will accept his award. Mr. Stacy served in the Vietnam War as an infantryman and held various awards from his time in the military, including the Australian Defence Medal, the Vietnam Medal, and the Australian Active Service Medal. After Vietnam, he returned to his family's roots, farming in Strathalbyn. Mr. Stacy remained loyal to the service as South Australian President of the Royal Australian Regiment Association. He became a leading voice in his community, advocating for the local dairy industry and those who returned home after representing our country. A 51-year member and the former district representative of the RSL of Australia, David remained devoted to his community and country and a true hero. The late Mr. David Hugh Stacy. Ms. Janice White is recognised for service to the community of Murray. Ms. White's extensive contributions to Murray have given the small community a big heart. Shouldering the vast desert of Central Australia, Murray attracts tourists with its ancient natural wonders and rich heritage of the Arabana people. Ms. White has spent 20 years as a volunteer bus driver for the Arabana cultural tours, connecting and celebrating the region's Indigenous heritage through immersive experiences. Since 1995, she has served as facilitator at the Arabana Aboriginal Cultural Centre and Heritage Museum. Driven by equality and activism, Ms. White has a deep and long-standing dedication to the Murray community. The former coordinator of the Murray Aged Care Program, she is also a previous editor and producer at the Murray Community Newsletter and a volunteer of the Murray Progress Association and the Murray Community Arts Project. Ms. Janice White. Mr. John Francis Ziesing is recognised for service to hockey and to the community. Mr. Ziesing has devoted countless volunteer hours to protecting and serving the Adelaide Hills community. A stalwart of the Adelaide Hills Hockey Club, he has also been involved in the Country Fire Service as a firefighter for Aldgate, Littlehampton and Piccadilly Brigades. He is a life member of the Anembo Park Sport and Recreation Association and is a former coach and manager of Hills Hockey and with the South Australia Primary School Amateur Sports Association. Mr. Ziesing is also recognised for his contribution to Hockey SA as a playing coach, team selector for regional hockey carnivals, his services to committees and forums, and as a player in the State Masters Hockey. His wider community service includes Scouts South Australia as a former branch leader, and the Royal Agricultural and Horticultural Society as a judge of junior art, craft and design, and a member of the Junior Art, Craft Cookery and Technology Committee. Mr. John Francis Ziesing. Your Excellency, that concludes the presentations for this morning.